It feels like financial crises hit us like clockwork, right? From bank runs to huge market crashes, it can seem like we're just stuck in a loop we can't break. But what if I told you the meltdowns we see today aren't new at all? Today, we're going to dig into the history books to figure out why these panics keep happening and what the past can teach us about our own financial future.
So picture this. It's September 2007 in the UK. And I'm not talking about some black and white photo from the Great Depression. This is the 21st century. Those are everyday people queuing for blocks outside a bank called Northern Rock. They're all there for one reason, to pull out their life savings because they're terrified the bank is about to go under. This was the first bank run in the country in over 140 years, and a pretty shocking reminder that financial panic, well, it never really goes out of style.
So what was the spark that lit the fuse? Well, here it is. It was the explosive growth of a brand new financial product, subprime mortgages over in the US. Just look at this. Between 2001 and 2006, their share of the market more than doubled to over 20%. This was a classic case of a financial innovation that was allowed to grow way too fast with way too few rules before the whole thing came crashing down.
Now, that crisis felt completely new, right? A super complex, modern financial product that brought the entire global system to its knees. But here's the thing. What if the playbook for this whole disaster was written, I don't know, centuries ago? Was this really a new story, or was it just the latest performance of a very old and very dangerous play?
For our first stop, we're going to jump in a time machine and go all the way back to the early 1700s in France. Because it's here that we find what might just be the blueprint for every major speculative bubble that came after.
The guy behind it all was this man, John Law, and his idea, which he called the system, was incredibly bold. He talked the French government into letting people swap their risky, kind of worthless government bonds for shares in his new Mississippi company, which promised incredible riches from North America. Basically, he was taking junk government debt and repackaging it as a hot new stock. Sound familiar?
And boy, did the public go for it. It was an absolute frenzy. Share prices just exploded, climbing from 500 livres to a mind-blowing 9,000 in just a few months. I mean, can you even imagine? People from every walk of life poured their life savings into this thing, absolutely convinced they were on the fast track to getting rich. It was a full-blown mania.
But here's the catch. This wasn't just some organic market craze. To keep that bubble from popping, Law's company started buying its own shares, right at the peak price. He was literally printing paper money just to prop up the stock. So when people's confidence finally broke, the collapse was, well, it was total. Fortunes were just wiped out, and the entire French economy was left in shambles.
Okay, so you might think this is just about stock market bubbles, but nope. In the 19th century, this same cycle of boom and bust went totally global. Only this time it was fueled by stuff you could actually touch: land, railroads, and resources in these new developing economies.
There's actually a term for this: overbanking. And basically, it goes like this. A massive amount of money, mostly from Britain, would just flood into these new frontier economies. All that cash would then fuel these huge speculative booms in things like railroads or mines. It created incredible growth, sure, but it was inevitably followed by a devastating bust when that river of money suddenly dried up.
And we're not just talking about one or two places. This thing went global. The United States, Canada, all the way down to Australia and Argentina. The exact same story played out over and over again. A huge rush of foreign money, a speculative fever, and then a really painful economic hangover. It was the same human drama, now playing out on a world stage.
So after all this chaos, people started to think, okay, maybe we need some rules here. It was pretty clear that finance needed some guardrails. So let's look at one of the first, and maybe one of the most successful, attempts to build a modern, stable financial system.
Enter Alexander Hamilton. In the early 1790s, the guy basically engineered a financial revolution from scratch for the United States. He had one simple goal: build trust. So he consolidated the national debt, created a single currency, and, crucially, established a central bank. He was building the foundation of a stable system, designed specifically to prevent the kind of chaos we've been talking about.
And you know what? It worked. Like, it really worked. Hamilton's system brought order and confidence. But then, a few decades later, President Andrew Jackson came along and vetoed the central bank's charter. He got rid of it. And boom, the country was plunged right back into a decade of financial crises and instability. It was a really painful lesson that these guardrails, these institutions, they are absolutely essential.
Okay, so let's bring this all back home. What does a guy in the 1700s or a railroad boom in Argentina have to do with your bank account today? Well, the technology has changed for sure. The speed is unbelievable, but the underlying game of finance and the human psychology that drives it, it's pretty much the same.
I love this quote from the historian Larry Neal because it just hits the nail on the head. He asks if we can learn from the past as our markets bounce from one crisis to another like the steel ball in a pinball machine. It's such a perfect image, right? The core question is, can we actually learn to guide that ball, or are we just along for the chaotic ride?
So when you strip it all away, you start to see these patterns, these timeless truths that just keep showing up. From John Law's scheme to subprime mortgages, innovation is always going to move faster than the rule makers. The human emotions of greed and fear, that's the constant fuel for the fire. And global money flows can build up an economy or tear it down with terrifying speed. History doesn't give us the exact date of the next crisis, but it sure gives us a map of the warning signs.
And all of this leaves us with one big final question. Our financial system today is more complex and faster than anything anyone in history could have ever imagined. We have the historical patterns right in front of us. We have the blueprints of past mistakes. The real challenge for all of us is, are we finally going to learn from it? Or are we just doomed to repeat the past, only this time at hyperspeed?